Well, hello, folks. I am here at Grimgard, the Viking city that Grimfrost is building on the shores of Sweden's beautiful Lake Vänern, together with Daniel Gustafsson, a member of the Grimfrost Hird, and in the case of this video, a native speaker of Swedish. So we are going to talk a little bit about the differences between Old Norse and modern day Swedish. Now, in previous videos, I've talked about the differences between Old Norse and Icelandic, and Old Norse and Faroese, Old Norse and Norwegian, and of course, not being a native speaker of any of these modern languages, I can pronounce words. Well, you may have an opinion about this. I think acceptably. Okay, but it's never going to be exactly like someone who's a native speaker. Now, I'm not a native speaker of Old Norse either, but nobody is, so at least I'm on level ground there. Now, when we look at the modern Scandinavian languages on the continent, Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish, I would say that structurally Swedish is the most conservative of those three. It's the one that most resembles Old Norse in its structure because Swedish maintains a difference between three unstressed vowels. Okay? So, for example, say girl. What is girl in Swedish?
Flicka.
Now, what is girls?
Flickor.
So you notice there's two very distinct vowels in the second syllable there, that a versus that o. Right? Now in Danish, for example, those are both just one single vowel, it's just a schwa. And in most Norwegian dialects, we only have two. Now there's also a third unstressed vowel. Say, for example, the name of our boss here, as he usually wants to be called.
Arve.
Yeah. That's the third one. So we have three unstressed vowels, spelled E, A, and O, and those correspond to the unstressed vowels that are spelled in classical Old Norse, Old Icelandic, I, A, and U. Although in a lot of Old Icelandic manuscripts are also spelled E, A, and O, like in Swedish. So Swedish also maintains a distinction between two-syllable words that were one syllable in Old Norse, like a present tense verb. So for example, I read.
Jag läser.
And then what were already two-syllable words in Old Norse, like the infinitive, like I will read.
Jag ska läsa.
Yeah. It's subtle, difficult to imitate, but there is a falling tone through läser, the present tense, and then a falling rising tone on läsa, the infinitive. Could you just say those two words, läser or läsa?
Läsa, läser.
It's subtle, but it's there. And Norwegian and Swedish dialects, for the most part, have this distinction, although the tonal distinctions are not the same between all dialects. It is most likely, actually, that all Old Norse dialects had that tonal distinction. For example, Danish still, even though they've lost the musical tone, they still have a phenomenon called stud, that catch in the throat. That's in the same place that Norwegian and Swedish have the falling tone words. So it's most likely that Danish and Icelandic have lost it, but that Norwegian and Swedish inherited from Old Norse, which I think is kind of cool. Another big difference that you may notice from the Old Norse that most people learn to read in classes or from books is the word for I. Because in Old Norse, typically what you're going to find, because our texts are from Iceland, is ek. But in Swedish, I is
Jag.
Right. And you actually already see this difference in the oldest runic inscriptions. So what's happened there is the original word in Proto-Norse is ekka. The A that was at the end gets moved into the first syllable in Swedish. This is actually a fairly common phenomenon in linguistics. That becomes a two-syllable, something like eak, before the initial syllable becomes a glide, and we get Old Swedish jak, which is where modern Swedish jag is from. Versus in the West, the A at the end of eka simply drops and you get ek. And from that, for example, modern Norwegian on the West Coast, like egg, that sort of thing. Now, for a Viking coming back today and walking into, Göteborg or Kristinehamn or something, could they understand Swedes? Would Swedes understand them? I suspect that if I start with Old Swedish, that I think you and I could maybe talk a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, want to just try something off the cuff here?
Yeah, we can try.
Okay. Þetta þinn båtur?
I think I can say the boat.
Yeah, båtur.
Yeah.
Og båturinn. Båturinn þinn?
Båten. The boat is mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Båturinn þinn?
Båten min?
Mm.
Oh. Is the boat mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it?
No, it's not mine.
But you would probably say nej,
Yeah.
which I'd understand. So it's not impossible.
Yeah.
Right? Try something on me.
Ska du åka med båten?
Ja. Ja, jag vill åka i båten. Does that sound halfway understandable?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the basic words are pretty much there.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest difference you're going to find is there's all these endings in Old Norse, right? So boat in Swedish,
Båt.
and the boat,
Båten.
plural boats.
Båtarna.
But in Old Norse, we have multiple different forms, right? It's båtar, båt, båts, båti, båtar, båta, båta, båtum, and then definite båtren, båten, båtsins, båtenum, båtarnir, båtarna, båtarna, båtenum, right? There's all these different forms that Swedish and Norwegian and Danish have lost all of that inflection, all those inflectional endings, except the plurals,
Yeah.
the bestemd article, and the S that makes it possessive, right? So like båts årar, is that or?
Åra.
Åra, okay. So båts åra, like boats or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Båtåra.
Okay, you don't even use the S. Okay, yeah. So like, but it's much reduced in terms of that complexity, and also in the verb. So in Old Norse, if I say, or I'll say Old Swedish, if I say I am, you are, he is, we are, you plural are, they are, it's jag am, du ert, han wir erum in Old Swedish, eruð, and þeir eru. But in modern Swedish, if I say I am,
Jag är.
you are,
Du är.
he is,
Han är.
we are,
Vi är.
you, many are,
Ni är.
and they are.
De är.
So it's the same verb form in all of those, right? So that complex system of endings, maintained in Icelandic for the most part, but completely lost in Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, making the system very similar to English. I find that actually Scandinavians speak English remarkably well from an English-speaking perspective because English speakers typically don't learn other languages, so we think that it's hard all the time.
Yeah.
But the languages are very, very similar, right? I don't find it structurally unfamiliar trying to speak Swedish. Probably the most unfamiliar thing would be the article that goes at the end.
You mean the apostrophe?
No, like båten.
Yeah.
Right, I think that's probably the hardest thing for, well, maybe some of the word order things, right?
Yeah.
Igor var jag i Kristinehamn or something like that. Like that's slightly odd from an English perspective.
Yeah.
I think that the languages are still recognizably close. They're forgotten sisters, I like to say. But at any rate, that's I think a fun little look at some of the differences. Thank you for being here and being better at pronouncing Swedish than I am.
Thanks.
And from the shores of beautiful Lake Vänern and beautiful Värmland, Sweden, we're wishing you all the best.